Today, I'm going to show you how to build a hot compost pile and get it into that thermophilic range within 72 hours. At the end of the video, I'll go over my entire compost bin setup. I do have a video that shows how my husband and I built this, and in the description, it lists the cut list and all the materials. The necessary ingredients for this hot compost pile I'm building are 3. Well, actually 4, but 3 that I'm adding today. My brown, which is my wood chips, my source of carbon. My green, which is my Bokashi ferment and garden clippings, which is my source of nitrogen. I'll be adding water, and air will be added as the pile is created. So those 4 things: nitrogen, carbon, water, and air. That's all you need to make a hot compost pile. The nice to haves: mosquito repellent, some water, a chair to take a break. I like to use this multi-prong pitchfork from Craftsman. As I've been cleaning up some of the summer garden, I've taken all my garden clippings and thrown them into this open bay, so they're here when I'm ready to create a new pile. I'm going to cut all these garden clippings into smaller pieces. They'll decompose faster. I've got a nice base layer of greens. I could have also started with a base layer of browns. Doesn't matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start alternating greens, browns, and adding water as I go. All right, we've done a layer of greens, a layer of browns. Now it's time for more greens. I'm going to alternate, and this time I'm going to add some Bokashi ferment. I'm not going to go into what Bokashi ferment is. It's a type of pre-compost input. I will link a video all about Bokashi in the description of this video. If you don't Bokashi, there are lots of other green sources you could use. Used coffee grounds, your kitchen scraps, untreated grass clippings, alfalfa meal, your garden clippings. All right, I think that was 5 wheelbarrows of wood chips, 3 Bokashi buckets, 3 5-gallon Bokashi buckets, and all the celosia and other things that I decided to rip out of my garden end of summer. We're going to finish with a bunch more water. Especially when using wood chips, the pile is almost always drier than you think it is. Oh, there goes the timer on my hose. I guess we're done watering. I'm going to grab one of my compost thermometers. These are Temp compost thermometers. I got mine off of Amazon. You can order them directly from the company or get them off Amazon. I'll link them in the caption of this video. And what's nice is that they tell you or show you when your pile is getting into a steady, active, or hot range. So we want 130 degrees in the next 72 hours. An ideal size for a hot compost pile is a minimum of 3 feet wide, 3 feet tall, and 3 feet deep. These compost bays are all 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, and 4 feet deep because I wanted to be able to make more compost. You'll notice my compost pile is in the shade, and that might be confusing to some. The thing is, it doesn't matter if it's in the sun or shade. They both have pluses and minuses to them. A big plus of having it in the shade is if I'm working on my compost piles during the summer, I'm in the shade. Also, it keeps my piles from drying out quicker in our summer southern heat. And if we get a crazy thunderstorm that drops a ton of rain, the tree canopy actually helps the piles not get completely soaked. How do you tell if your pile is too wet or too dry or just right? You stick your hand into your compost pile, grab some from inside it, squeeze it as hard as you can. 1 or 2 drops of water, your compost pile is perfect. More than that, it's too wet, and you can remedy that by doing a flip, which will add air, and adding more browns or carbon. And if you don't have any readily available, you can even use cut up cardboard. And if you don't get any water at all, your pile's too dry and you need to add water. So you've seen what a compost pile starts out looking like. Let me show you what it ends up looking like. I have a DIY compost sifter made out of 2x4s and hardware cloth. I made it the dimensions of my wheelbarrow. Seemed like a smart thing to do. This pile that I'm currently sifting cooked, was in the hot temperature range until it stopped heating up when I would turn it and add air and water and nitrogen. And that's when I decided to let it just sit. Once it cooled down completely to the ambient air temperature, then I let it sit another 2 months to cure and be ready to use in the garden. The wood chips I used for this pile were not shredded small, like they were big chunks. So this pile, even though it's ready to be used in the garden, it still has some big chunks left, and I will just add those to the current pile because it's going to add that microbial life to the pile that I'm trying to get started. And they'll be able to further break down there. One thing when building a new compost pile is it's nice to have all of your inputs ready to go. I had all 3 of my Bokashi buckets ready. I had all my garden clippings ready, and I had my wood chips ready. If you are not doing Bokashi and you want to save up a bunch of kitchen scraps, you can freeze them in gallon bags to have a bunch of kitchen scraps all ready to go. You can also visit local coffee shops and ask them for their used coffee grounds. I've done that before. That works really well. And if you're really desperate and you need some green input, you can purchase from feed stores alfalfa cubes or alfalfa pellets, soak them in water, and add that to your pile to add some green. Oh, I've made quite the obstacle course for myself. Look at that. I could sift it even further if I wanted to, but this is just wonderful. It smells like a forest. It smells so good. I'm Amanda, the Ever Hopeful Gardener. Thanks for joining me today. If you have questions, drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them.
Newly built pile is around 77, 78 degrees.
My husband and I built this 3-bay compost system so that I can always have 2 piles of compost going at a time. One can be resting and curing, while another active pile is able to be flipped from an empty bay back and forth until it's ready to rest. We made all the fronts and the interior walls removable for ease of turning the piles.